Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Nerd Today podcast. I'm your host, your doctor recommended dose of nerdiness, aka your nerd today, Carlos Rodriguez. And with me, is my good friend Gina. And I would like you to do a quick before we get into like the dumb stuff that pays the bills. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi everybody, I'm Gina. I've known Carlos, 4, 5 years now?
About five, yeah.
I think so. Wow, we are getting old.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's the gray in the
yes,
beard, yeah.
yeah. We met through work and since have parted ways, but I've kept in touch because I mean, you all know how lovely he is. So when he reached out to me to chat today, of course, I had to say yes. So I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much. All right. So before we get to the kind of meat and potatoes, and it's more of a serious topic, obviously, there's going to be trigger warnings, content warnings for people who, if it's rough, please, at your leisure, listen or watch. Because, this stuff is heavy sometimes, and some people just don't. They want to just, whatever. And you're allowed to curse, by the way, if you want to. So,
I should have asked when we started because it's
no,
gonna
no.
pop out.
No, I figure. Guests are allowed to curse. Me, I try to keep it PG-13, unless we're talking about Joss Whedon, where he can go fuck himself, or any horrible person in the world.
Right.
But so before we get into the episode proper, I just want to give a shout out to our Patreons. That's right, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/nerdtoday. I'm gonna go through it quick since this is more of a serious discussion, not like a hey, this is fun, let's talk about this. So I just want to give a shout out to Jeff Felsher, rest past my apron work partner in crime. We're on a hiatus. I put a tweet out about that, but we'll talk about that another time. The fine folks, Matt and Maggie over at Hopefully Awesome, they are awesome, and they're actually one of my favorite things to watch this week, especially when I'm down. They have a Smallville podcast that's very funny, and it actually gets me through my day. My cousin Brandon and our really good friend Susan. So thank you all
Aw,
for supporting me.
Susan.
Yes. Okay. So with that out of the way, July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And typically with the Nerdy Day podcast, I kind of talk, obviously I talk about nerdy stuff, but those nerdy things are the things that got me through life. Like whether the really bad times, really good times, the kind of awkward times, like those are the things that kind of got me. And I've adorned them on my body because they're not just these fun little comic book or nerdy things. They're also something that if I'm having a bad day, I can look at my arm or my chest and be like, you know what? I feel better. But I wanted to get just a couple notes out of the way. There'll be links down below. There'll be a link to the National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month from the U.S. government website. I have that link down below. You can, on Instagram and Twitter, the username's at Minority Health. There is a toll-free number to reach them, which is, again, all this is below. And this is all for America, so I'm sorry, anybody listening abroad. Hopefully you have resources on your own, but we're specifically talking an American, month in issue because we live here. The toll-free number is 1-800-444-6472. They can also be reached at info@minorityhealth.hhs.gov. And then this, I think, was I don't know if you remember. Is this like last week development? There is a new like hotline. The mental health hotline
Yes.
has a
988.
yes. So 988. You can dial that from your phone, and it's all encompassing, but it's also the suicide prevention hotlines on there and everything, so you can reach that. And then obviously the motto for this month is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month is observed each July to bring awareness to unique struggles that racial and ethnic minority communities face regarding mental illness in the United States. So with all that heaviness out the way, Gina, I have brought you on. You're our third guest on the podcast.
Wow.
Yeah. It's Rest Pass, where we talked about a wrestling video game, because we just got notifications of stuff. And of course, me and him talked for like 2 hours, even though this is supposed to be like a short form podcast. And that's where I was like, you know what? From now, we'll just do long ones when it's guest. Secondly, we had Greg Miller, CEO of Kind of Funny Games and Kind of Funny, which was awesome. And funny enough, I mentioned my mental health in there because we talked about the meaning of Superman and what that Superman means to me, and him.
Love
And
that.
then you're our third one, and I brought you on specifically because you are. I'm just putting you on the spot here. You are an
That's fine.
inspiration. You are an inspiration to me.
Oh,
Um,
well, don't
every
make me cry. We just started.
no, I think it's probably going to be some happy tears on both ends
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
with like a heavy subject like this. No, honestly, you are an inspiration. I'm trying not to get trouble with shit. um, I I just applaud you, just your frankness. That's one of my favorite things about our friendship is how frank you are. um, I've been lucky enough in my life to be surrounded by very very opinionated and frank women, and those are the best women to have in my life. Everyone needs that kind of woman in your life, because they make the world better. And they'll order your French fries when the kitchen messes up.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm
I
married
get
to
that.
one. I was raised by them. My sister's one. My niece is one. Very opinionated. Um, but yeah, so I love it. You every year you bring this up, and we've had discussions. Since you're more open than me, when it comes to struggles, and it's because of you I've become more open to talking about it, because there's a stigma, obviously, and that's
Oh
kind of what
yeah.
July's about, right? There's a stigma within different minority communities. Obviously, you and me are
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rican, so we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
talk about those struggles or non-struggles depending on.
Mm-hmm.
This actually was not planned, by the way.
Oh, I
My
love
shirt
it.
was not planned.
I love it.
I just was like, oh, it's the first shirt in the closet. I'm like, yeah, kind of perfect for today. But this is also like a really nice shirt for me. So it's proud and powerful, and it always says "Siempre pa'lante." Little good
I
little
love
saying for us,
that.
yeah. And yeah, so you're an inspiration to me, and I wanted to. I was thinking about, oh, like what should I do this week? What should I talk about? Should I just play Ninja Turtles for the 80th time, or I was like, I already did that. No, she's like, you know what? Let me talk about like a really serious subject, and it's
Hmm.
something that's been affecting me. I live with depression, and anxiety every day, um, specifically, and this channel is kind of an outlet for that. Like, it's also I get to talk about it, and now it's slowly I want this to become a career. So I'm working on that goal.
Hmm.
But when I think I may have mentioned it on my first episode where I kind of talked about what the idea for the channel is, and all this stuff I grew up with um helped mold me. In my this is also going to be kind of like episode 2 of a test pilot podcast I was thinking about as well. So it's kind of the meaning of mental health. On my episode with Greg when we talked about Superman, I mentioned that most people have come to me, and I know it sounds like you know braggadocious and stuff, but like people were like, "Oh, you're so nice, you're so sweet, you're so kind,"
Yeah.
but I know your upbringing. Why? Well, it's like I was
Hmm.
not raised. I didn't get to grow up with my dad, and my mom was very rough, which we'll get into later, I'm sure. Um, I like to say I was raised by Martha, Jonathan, and May, and that's Martha Kent, Jonathan Kent, and May Parker. Because those stories are kind of, I mean, it's a book about a guy who dresses up like a spider and stops crying and has funny quips, but that has really informed the kind of like moral center that I've developed throughout my 35 years in this world. Especially with Superman. Like obviously Clark is just a good person, but he's nothing without Martha and Jonathan teaching him those life lessons and how to be a good man. So this really hit home. It was never just a, hey, this is just a story about Superman fighting another Kryptonian and punching him in the face how many times, or whoever can punch harder. Those are there. Don't get me wrong, but um, it's just how good of a person he is. I mentioned in the episode as well. One of my favorite panels. Um, there is a jumper. She's going to commit suicide, and she goes to walk off the ledge, And Superman just flies up to her, and he's at the most powerful level he's ever been in this story. And he just looks at her. She starts crying. And he's like, "You're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm here with you," and just gives her a hug. And I I remember reading that, and I put it down, and I just like had to walk away. And I think I
Yeah.
just cried. And Tara, my lovely wife, she looked at me. She was like, "You okay?" I was like, "No, it's so beautiful," you know.
Yeah.
Um, but that's kind of where a lot of the stuff has come from, and of course, I've adorned myself with tattoos that have
Oh
meanings for it.
yeah.
But Gina, can you what is your background with mental health and things like that?
Sure. Well, definitely genetically prone to it.
Mhm.
So, it was not necessarily a surprise. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder when I was, gosh, it was the summer I turned 19, so like a decade ago. Um, and ever since then, it's been kind of, I mean, definitely up and down in a sense, just because of the type of disorder it is, but definitely because it's been so up and down, you kind of learn that you have to, like you said, you live with it every day, where even when you're feeling well, you have to think about it and set yourself up for success. So that's kind of something that it's taken a decade for me to get here and feel like I can talk about these things and to develop, it's for myself that work for me when I'm not doing well,
Mm.
and kind of accepting that, okay, even though you might be fine now, you're not going to stay that way. So what choices are you going to make during the day?
Mhm.
It never leaves you, even when you're doing well. And it's kind of taken me a long time to realize too, like that's okay. It's just like any other condition someone lives with lifelong. Like it's totally fine that I'm gonna have another depressive disorder. It sucks, but it's just something that I think once you kind of make peace with that, it's like, okay, it's gonna be
Mhm.
fine. Look at how many moments I've gotten through. We're gonna be okay. So yeah, it's definitely a day-to-day thing.
Yeah, and I agree. I know for my instance specifically, like it's scary. When it's
Mhm.
bad, it's scary. Like
Yep. Yeah.
it feels like you're swimming in an ocean. At least for me, like it feels like
Mhm.
you're swimming in an ocean you can't get out. And I like I mentioned, like your posts and stuff. You're so open and outspoken about your issues, your depression and your anxiety that I think that I've had days and I look at your post and I'm like, okay, well she's talking about, I don't know why I'm holding it in for whatever reason, like I don't
Mhm.
understand I don't know why. Like it's dumb to hold it in, but I've it's taken a long time, and it kind of works with this month as well because disproportionately, a lot of minorities are kind of hold to a standard of we don't talk about this, right?
Yes.
I know from
Especially men.
yeah,
Sorry to interject,
no,
especially men.
no,
Like I want to highlight that.
mm-hmm,
Like that is a huge thing that's why I'm so excited that you're doing this. Like men of color talking about this is fantastic and it just needs to happen more. So you go.
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. Statistically speaking, I don't have, fortunately, I don't have the numbers, but I think it's on the website. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, men of color are like just don't. We just don't. We're
Yeah.
told to hold those feelings in,
Yep.
don't cry. You're not a man, you're not this. And mind you,
Mhm.
it was weird when I came to terms with my anxiety and my depression because hearing those phrases when people are like, "Oh yeah, so many men are told like this, and that." I'm like, all those phrases were spoken to me by my two mothers. Um, my my mother Migdalia was rough. I believe she had a rough upbringing. I I can never get a story straight from her. Fortunately, I mean she unfortunately was like a very pathological liar. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I can see this. But I remember as a child going to her and crying. I'm talking like 12, 13, crying my eyes out. Don't understand what's going on. Everything just sucks at the world. The slightest thing is just throwing me off. And I remember her just yelling at me. Um, to be a man, you don't do this, you don't do that. Like, why are you acting this way? Why are you crazy? You're crazy. I'm like, that's really weird to say that out loud. Like, I don't think you should be kind of saying that to me. And that's kind of where like a disconnect we had, but parenting wise. Like as I was getting
Yeah.
older, I was very fortunate enough to have like we grew up in the internet age, so you can start seeing some of the stuff and hearing people talk about it. In a way, I was like, oh, do I have that? And I mean, shout out to Augustina, her partner. She tried her damnedest. But I think it's easier to see as an adult who's like been in a long relationship and married and stuff like that. There's stuff, when you're in a relationship, you're like, oh, I can accept this.
Sure.
I accept it's really hard to, wake Tara up from the couch. So she'll scream or throw something at me and, so I accepted that, we've been together for 17 years. I'm not going to try to wake her up. She's on her own. That's an acceptance. And then tomorrow when she's angry about her neck being hurt, it's going to be my fault. It's fine. It's okay. Um, but for, Ogie, which we called her, she, it's rough knowing, like seeing so many adult relationships and then finding out that they were together. I didn't know that until, I was much older and they both passed, that they were an item. I was told she was the aunt.
Sure, yeah.
But not by family, and not blood related, but she's so close that like she's aunt.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then it was like the brain explosion moment at my mom's funeral. It was like, wait, you know what? They did sleep in each other's bed every once in a while.
Wait, you
And
found out at the funeral?
I,
I
th-
didn't know that.
yeah, it was like when she passed, I obviously got her belongings, and we were going through her
Sure.
phone, and I was like texting people like, hey, she's passed. These are the arrangements.
Yeah.
I'm her son. And then we went on her Facebook to deactivate it, and she was part of a lesbians 60 and above group, which
Wow.
surprisingly, right? Like she never formally came out. She never came out to
Hmm.
me. I wish she had. I feel like if she was able to speak her truth, I think that would have solved so many issues between us.
Sure.
Obviously she has other mental illnesses or issues that I think were undiagnosed. Obviously she grew up in a way different time where you're not even allowed to
Yeah,
talk about that. And hell, she was gay and she wasn't even allowed to talk about that. I guess she didn't feel comfortable,
yeah,
but there was like a slight like when she passed, there was like a wave of like, oh my God, she had someone. And then you
yeah.
start thinking about like, man, wish you fought a little bit harder, Ogie. Like, but it's hard. I'm sure she was like a rock in a hard place, right? Like she considered me her son, but she can't really override the mother, right?
Yeah.
And so God bless her, she tried with me. She would try to, in her very, elderly way, try to be like, no, you're fine. You'll be okay.
Mhm.
This is just a phase. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a phase though. And she would try her best. And that's definitely like a way for her, I guess, to deal with stuff. And obviously they're both closeted and they grew up in a time where you're not allowed to talk about it. I mean, hell, it's still rough now for so many, but it's getting better
Yeah.
every day, every year. I'm sure a lot of that has like made them suffer. And it was like a sadness. Like I could not quantify what was going on with me until I started dating Tara. So like after high school, we met and we started dating, and I had a really hard time in college. I just dropped out of nowhere and didn't tell her. And then we had this finally like sit down for like 2 hours. I'm crying. She's reassuring me it's okay. And I've never heard that before. Like, oh, it's okay to
Yeah.
cry. I'm like, what? Is it? I'm a guy. I'm not supposed to cry. Um, and I was describing stuff to her and she stopped and she's like, you have depression. and
Yeah.
anxiety. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're depressed. I was like, no, that's just a thing, right? And she's like, no, it's
Yeah.
real. It's very real. Um, I mean, we could go to a doctor and everything, you can get diagnosed, but like you have it. I could tell you have it.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, how, like, not even being rude. I was like, well, how do you know? And she said, oh, my mom took me to like therapy, and I've seen
Mhm.
counselors and things like that. And I was like, such a foreign concept. I remember hearing about them like in
Mhm.
2003 when I was in like high school, 2003, 2004. And I think I went to my mom one time and asked her if I could see someone. And I mean, this was one of those epic drag out fights that we had.
Yeah.
And it was rough. It was really rough. Like again, she just made me feel like shit. Um I was crazy. I'm not, there's something wrong with me. I was like, well, I think so. I want to get checked
Yeah,
out.
there is.
There
There is
is,
something wrong
yeah.
with me.
Just not what you're saying. There is something wrong, I
Yeah.
think, but I don't know what it is. Um, it's rough, man. It's really rough when you don't have that support. And
Yeah.
for so many people of color, so many stories I hear are so similar to mine. That you get pushed
Yeah.
back. Can you speak to like how was growing up? Like you said, you found out when you were
Yeah.
19. So what
I
was?
was 19. And like, what's so funny is I think the reason, and this is something that's hitting me now, is the reason I feel like I not need to talk about this, but I'm compelled to is because I had so much support. I had a different story in that instance, and I recognize how privileged I've been and how like my family, my parents are I mean, my mom's a nurse, so I think that helps. But it's so much support growing up. In those like late teen years when I realized like something's not right. They like I was in college, my mother would drive 8 hours from Ohio to Virginia just for the weekend, just like make sure I was okay. The second I was like, I need to start therapy or I need meds, we're going to the doctor, we're finding a
Mhm.
therapist. And because I've had this experience that is so like I got so lucky. Gosh, everything's
Yeah.
like coming in
No.
flashes now. Like, I had my first round of meds that I was on a GP put me on them, and it was not it was a sub GP, like my regular GP was
Mhm.
out. Um and he said something that still sticks with me, like, oh, mental illness is a physical illness. Your brain is not releasing it. He explained it in a way where I was like, looking back, so many doctors would not have that kind of
Yeah.
conversation with you, I feel. You know, I've had a lot of therapists, some of them not great, but I eventually found someone who is so wonderful. It's just all these things clicked into place for me. All these things gave me so many tools that, of course, I have to say something, because, like you said, you're not alone. And why I want to keep talking about things like that are my own family members who, gosh, I don't want to like slam my aunts and uncles. That sounds awful. It's just
I know my
my
mom's dead,
parents.
and I'm like,
Yeah, like
I'm over
I
that,
mean
but
it.
yeah.
I mean it in a way where like my parents are like particularly open.
Mhm.
They're just unicorns. They're amazing. So I think it's that normal culture of, and I will say too, my parents moved away from, Cleveland, the Cleveland area where the family grew up. So I think our story would have been a lot different if it wasn't just like my mom and my dad kind of being nomads doing their own thing. If
Mhm.
we lived in the area where my family still lives, I think I'd be telling a very different story. Um, but yeah, a lot of my cousins don't have, or didn't have the kind of relationship with their family or their parents that I did. Where I've had my own cousins reach out to me when I first kind of started being vocal about mental health, and they're being like, I didn't know, like, what do I like? I'm I'm having these feelings. What did you do? My
Hmm.
own cousins where I didn't know that they were going through this. And so just to know like someone in your own family is going through it. And that's when I just remember telling one cousin, I'm like, this is like genetic, right? Like this our
Yeah.
family, like we're time bombs at this point. Like this is not
Yeah.
abnormal. And so I don't know. I just like I have to say something after having those experiences, of course, because you never know who it's gonna be. I'm sure I get,
Hmm.
oh, Gina's on her, I don't want to say soapbox. I don't know if it's necessarily that, but like Gina's talking about this again.
Yeah.
That you kind of, it becomes so irrelevant when you have those moments with the people who come to you one on one and say, oh my goodness, I, this, I thought I was alone. Now I'm thinking about Superman. There's just so much,
Yeah.
where not feeling alone can be so powerful. So that's why I talk. I'm not going to shut up about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I think there's always a fear in the back of my head because I've been more vocal. I mean, obviously, in your steed, like I've been more vocal about it on social media,
Mhm.
and I am lucky enough with the gaming space that I've cultivated. I Everyone's very vocal, and I'm so
Mhm.
proud of the younger generation who
Yes.
they I don't want to say have it easier, but they're so more militant, I think, than many of us
Yeah.
were growing up, and they're just like, nah, fuck that. I'm not gonna wait. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
stand back and like, no, I'm gonna figure this shit. And it's also easier, right? You can get mental health now, like all the resources we have down below. Um, you can just hit three numbers on your phone, and if your mom's in another room and she's the problem, and you could just talk to someone and get that shit out and feel better, whatever it may be. They could talk you off that ledge. I know for me, you were talking about, feeling alone. That's what it felt like. I felt like I was on an
Yeah.
island. Um, so many times I felt like I was pretending, put the fake smile
Oh
on.
yeah.
Eventually it's gonna be real. Um, Now that's just for work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for just the day job, so I don't get fired. Um, but like I don't have to hide that anymore, like it is empowering, but at the time as a teenager it was rough. It felt so alone. And then
Yeah.
to be constantly told, hey, you're wrong for thinking this way. He's like, well, I don't feel right, so what's right, what's wrong? I was, that scary low a few times in my life, and it's it's so random. Obviously, content warning. When you are like to that level where it's like, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. Like,
Yeah.
um, it's so funny where like the slightest thing can just be the thing that saves you. Um,
Yep.
I remember the last time I was at that level, like suicidal. It was 2009. I would say arguably like the worst like time period of my life, and I was going to therapy. I just started, but everything just felt so low, and I went to um just because of outstanding factors in my life. Like there were a lot of things that just mental health already issue. Something majorly horrible happened to me in my life that even impacted that further. I felt like I couldn't, like
Yeah.
I was drowning. And then going to like, all right, so I'm seeing somebody, um, Dawn, rest in peace.
Oh, I
Um,
know.
I know that's so crazy that we're talking about this, and I'm thinking about her obviously because she helped me
Mhm.
the most.
Absolutely.
And um, I'm going to see her, but I'm still like digging my way out, of this hole. And I went to, I think one of the exercises was to talk to my parents, and I came clean to what was going on because I was
Yeah.
over there a lot more than at the time what was happening, and I told them, and it kind of validated all the scary shit that I was hoping wouldn't. At that time, I guess it's I to me if I sound selfish, but I probably not. I just didn't want to be an adult. I wanted to have my mom hug me and tell me everything was going to be okay. And what I got was her taking everything in and making it her problem. Like, oh, this is affecting me. And how could this happen to me? I'm like, no, it's happening to me. And I just
Yeah.
need someone to tell me it's
Yeah.
going to be okay. And like every outlet was a roadblock. It was like, oh, hey, this person. And there was like, oh, see how you did everything was wrong. And you kind of fucked up for it. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. All right, next person. No, I'm going to be selfish about this and I'm not going to like support you in whatever you need. I was like, oh, okay, next person. No,
Yeah.
I was like, damn, I'm like roadblock after roadblock after. And it just felt like utter
Yeah.
despair. And at the time, I mentioned him earlier, but Jeff, who's a patron, I don't have to live on your couch for you to give me money. I'm just saying. I was living on his couch. He was living at home with his mom at the time, and she's a saint, and she allowed me to stay there. I think I lived on the couch for like 3 months, and I was just like a sad sack, just laying there. But they were amazingly and beautifully wonderful to me in a time that I just needed like a parent, and I needed a friend
Mhm.
I could rely on. And um his girlfriend at the time, Lisa, as well. They used to joke and say they adopted me. So she, anytime I see
Yeah.
her, she calls me her son. That's how
Oh.
she introduces me to people, which is funny because she's got like a partner now. And I talked to them over FaceTime just recently, and it was like, "This is my son." I was like, "I love that you're continuing the joke. Like, this makes me happy." Um, but I was in a very bad place, and there was no one home that day. And I swear to God, this is I'm. It's funny now. At the
Yeah.
time, it was not. I went out. I had to work my day job at the time. And on my way home, I got stuck behind like a wedding procession, and it was supposed to be happy. And obviously, it's like this beautiful moment, but it's like a one-way street. I'm stuck behind this thing, and whatever reason, my iPod started to play the saddest song I have
Mhm.
on. It was like the next song on shuffle, and
Always happens.
oh yeah, and I was
Mhm.
prepared. Like my body was like, all right, we know what to do. Take take glasses off, put sunglasses
Yeah.
on, just cry. And I
Yeah.
at the time it was like, holy shit, what is going on? I remember all I remember is like everyone, because it's like a horse-drawn carriage. Everyone in the neighborhood's coming out to wave at these people, and there's just me crying. He's out in the back, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
just ugly, like shaking in the car, like trying to drive. I can't see straight. The wedding, poor that wife and husband, like lock eyes with me, and like I lock eyes with them, and they're just like, oh, oh no, like.
It
Oh
happens.
my god, it was like the
It
perfect moment
happens.
of despair. And that was like I said, now it's funny to think about because obviously I'm out of it
I
and
love that. Yeah, I
yeah,
wanna comment on that because, sometimes
yeah,
when I tell my stories of like, they do sound kind of ridiculous and they get
yeah,
kinda comical where, like, there's one it was actually so it was a couple years ago now, 2 years ago when my anxiety, because normally, like, in the majority of the decade, depression was my main issue. Well, and actually in the last few years, anxiety has really come to play where I had to be put on benzos, so I got the good drugs
yeah,
now.
yeah. I'm good
But
now. Yeah,
yeah,
mm,
but it was because I started having panic attacks while I was driving.
mm.
And so they like the first time it happened, it was I literally was convinced I was gonna die in my car. It was snowing at the time. But like looking back was the funniest story because I'm just like so hot. So I roll down the window. It's the dead of winter. There's vomit like all down my front. And I'm just like trying to get some air. It was, oh my gosh. And I'm just like, all right, just get home. It was, and like,
Like
I
take
get
yourself
into
out
my
the
parking.
moment and you're watching like this car just go down the street and just
There was cars like passing me. I'm in my like little Civic that I learned how to drive in this car, not equipped for snow at all. And when I finally get home, I just sit there, I call my mother, and I'm like, I'm fine. And then I just burst into tears. I'm just like, it was a wreck. It was like out of a movie, like meltdown
Oh.
moment. Looking back, I think it's hilarious. Or like the little random things that like trigger me where
Mm-hmm.
now I'll call my mom and be like, hey, I'm fine, but like this is a random one, but like when I shave my legs, they tingle a little bit, and for whatever reason, that sensation makes me want to have a panic attack. So I'm like, yeah,
Nope.
mom, I'm fine. I just shaved my legs, so I called you because I don't want to have a panic attack. Where it's like you have to laugh at it, and like it to me, I think there's so much beauty in the laughter because I don't want to say it normal. Well, I guess I do because this stuff is normal for people. This is
Yeah.
their day to day, where it's like it, it takes away some of the power of the moment. Because in the moment, I was like in
Mm-hmm.
the car, I was like, I'm gonna die today. This
Yeah,
is
this
where
is
I
the
die.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's like, okay, well that's funny because I didn't.
Yeah, I'm alive.
But
I
yeah,
live.
you have to
Mm-hmm.
find some levity in it, or how else would we cope?
I mean, I clearly remember the day. Like, I clearly remember it was
Yeah.
December 14th, 2009.
Mhm.
And I remember I got home, or I got to Jeff's house. I cried a little more in the car. He was out at a family event, and I got into the house and I texted him.
Mhm.
And he was like, "You cried, right?" I was like, "Oh, fuck yes, I cried." He's like,
Yeah.
"All right, when I get home, I'm gonna give you a big fucking hug."
Perfect.
And like, I, funny enough, going back to this, I fell asleep on the couch watching Superman Returns with Brendan Routh. And I woke up to this big Jewish man just giving me the deepest hug and a kiss on the forehead. He's like, and then Lisa, of course, running over like like literally like a mom, just like, oh my god, my
Love
baby.
it.
And she gave me a big hug, and he's like, you good? And I'm like, better now. And that
Mhm.
was the moment that like it took me out. Like I was like watching Superman, and so that like took my mind off of those thoughts and like,
Mhm.
how do I do it? What do I do? How do I do this? It's like, no, hold on. There's this guy who's flying, and Kate
Yeah.
Bosworth is in
Not
it.
yeah.
Kevin Spacey's actually a monster. Uh, and I think and then I ended up, some of that, like that moment is clear. And then I think I ended up at a local comic shop, and
I love it.
I did like retail therapy, and
Yeah.
it was like $70 worth of comic books. And then next thing I know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm good. I got through this moment. Oh, holy shit. And that was like the
Mhm.
last like real like time. Now, obviously so many of us being like millennials and stuff, we always say, oh my God, I just want to die. And
Mhm.
that can be scary if people, like
Mhm.
people know like I have depression, anxiety. So I've said that a
Mhm.
couple times and people are like, are you good? I'm like, no, I'm fine. It's just we
Yeah.
all say this. Come on, like I
Yeah.
just don't want to do this Excel spreadsheet. I'm just joking
I
about
love
that.
Excel, so
Oh yeah,
I'm biased in
yeah.
the other way.
It's the other way
Excel brings
around. It's
me
like I
joy.
gotta do Excel because that's the thing that's gonna keep me
Yeah.
motivated. But yeah,
Mhm.
I, she's always busy, so she'll eventually listen to this like a year down the line. But I have to give a shout out to Tara because like she is like
She's the best.
she really is, and she's definitely the person who I was like, obviously she's the one who found out I had anxiety, depression. She's like, I think you
Mhm.
got this. I was like, I don't know. I don't, I'm Puerto Rican. I don't have that. That's a
Mhm.
white people thing. And that's literally something that's been told
Yeah.
before. Like I've actually been told that. And I'm sure so many, people of color have heard that. Like, no. That's white people problems. They have anxiety, depression, not
Mhm.
you. It's like, no, motherfucker, all of us do. Like,
Yeah.
um, but like she's always obviously we've been together a very long time, but when we finally hit that like turning point in our relationship where it's like, hey, I woke up and I want you to know it's 6:45 in the morning. I'm already not having an okay day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she always goes,
Mhm.
is it anything particular? I'm like, nope, just fucking sad. And she's like, all right, cool.
Yes.
It just gives me a
I
hug, and just to have that like anchor point
yes.
is
Mine's my
so
mom,
perfect.
where
Yeah.
I'll call her and be like, "Listen, mom, nothing's wrong, but everything's wrong."
Yeah.
Where it's just having that person, and I will say another shout out to my mom, who I feel like I'm getting better at this too with my loved ones, because again, I have like literally the most supportive family in the world. And I've had to have some really kind of uncomfortable, ugly conversations about how, like, what I need. Because what you said about going to people and kind of them making it about them, or even the littlest things where, like, in my heart of hearts, I know these people want to be there for me, but something they say rubs me the wrong way, or
Mm-hmm.
what I've found, and this, my mom is the first person who has able to really say this to, and this was only in the last couple years, where I said, Mom, when I come to you with something, I need you to say, what do you need? Because even that little switch of saying, what can I do for you? The I statement is what would always
Yeah.
kind of like, what do you need? Because sometimes the answer is, I need to be alone, or I need, just having that. Oh, is that Tara?
No, no, my TV
Oh.
turned on behind me. I was like, what
Oh,
the
I thought someone walked in and I was
Nah, and
like,
I was like,
Tara. But anyway,
once we
yes,
end it, I'll
just,
have you say hi to her. I'll have her come up.
oh, yay.
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
yeah.
Yay. But yes, that's I think having that person who will listen and actually, I don't want to say correct their behavior like there was something wrong with their
Mm-hmm.
reaction, but it's something that I know I need to work on too, where in that moment you don't matter. It's, you got to really focus on that person. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually, when I was working at a behavioral health center, took a mental health first aid class. And they even tell you, like, after you've helped someone in a crisis, you need to have your own plan of care. Because in that moment, you really are, you have to make it about them, But it also means that you need to step back and kind of
Mm-hmm.
obviously check in with yourself. So just those little things that it's taken what, a decade to kind of have these conversations and really realize, like, a way I can verbalize this to someone, and the beauty of having not just my mom now, but like I've said this to like my sister or whatever, and have them ask me, what do you need? And it just, in that moment, your heart grows three sizes. It's just
Yeah.
great. But those are weird conversations to have, and because no one likes to be told, oh, you said the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily the wrong thing. It's just how can they say the right thing if they don't know how you feel about what they've said? It's just, it gets so nitty-gritty sometimes. And I feel blessed that I can have those conversations with my support system. And I that's what I want for everyone, to have that support system.
Yeah, I would say with like Tara's family is super supportive. I've been very lucky
Good,
to
good.
find them as well. Like my mother-in-law is amazing. She's the most amazing woman I've met, um, outside of Tara. Um, and then many of her aunts are, and her one uncle is good. The one, she's never gonna watch this, so it's fine.
There's always
Uh,
the one,
there's always the one. There's always the one. June 6th, where was she? I'm just saying. Uh, again, she's never gonna watch this. This is hilarious. Um, but
Can I just call out though that you do
yeah.
exactly, you just said June 6th, but I knew that you meant January because I
Oh yeah,
switch
I definitely
January
did.
and June
I
I'm
definitely
gonna say
did.
every fucking time. There's
Yeah,
my F bomb, but it's every
yeah,
fucking time.
yeah. I definitely
I
meant
like
January, but
got
yeah,
you.
yeah. Thank
I
you.
got
Yeah.
you.
Yes, I'm also insinuating that. I mean, FBI, whatever. No,
It's
that's
fine.
that's also a horrible joke. I am just joking. If that person's watching, if
It's fine.
that's what you get for that bodega comment. Um,
I don't even have to know what the comment was to know, like, oof.
just a, yeah, you just
Oof.
gotta assume on that one, and you're correct.
Yeah.
Um, I've been very fortunate with that, and I remember I had a former friend. Fortunately, we've had a falling out in the past year, and I remember when he came to his realization early on, and because I was vocal about my struggles and my depression and stuff, I don't want to say he was dismissive of it, but it never really clicked to him until something very horrible happened to him.
Hmm.
And when that happened to him, I remember we were in his backyard, and we each had a beer, and we were at a bonfire, and he looks at me and he's like, "Is this how you feel every day?" And without missing a beat, not even crying, I was like, Yep, every day. And
Hmm.
he just broke down.
Yep.
He's like, how? I was like, I have to, like, to a certain degree. Like,
Yeah.
I have responsibilities. This is before kids, but I have responsibility to, to Tara, to myself. Like,
Hmm.
and you caught me on a good day. You caught me on
Hmm.
a day where I'm not really thinking about it. I'm here for you if you need to talk about it. And obviously, I'm gonna need that cleanse after, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
That was not something I realized until this past year, when I had to go back to therapy.
Hmm.
I just as a quick tangent, I have a lovely friend who had something horrible happen to her, and um she felt comfortable. I won't name names, and it's their story to tell.
Hmm.
She felt comfortable to have me be the second person she's ever told
Wow.
um what happened. And I, because of my struggles with mental health and stuff, I immediately, it was like a Sunday night and there's a time difference for, well, me and my friend. I immediately text work. I was like, hey, not coming in.
Yep.
And I looked at her. I was like, give me one moment. And I grabbed myself some whiskey and I sat down at the front of the
Yep.
computer. And I was like, speak your truth if you're comfortable. And she, said everything. And that was rough. And she might watch this, and I don't want to. I remember her apologizing up and down. I was like, please, absolutely not. Like, I am honored that you thought that you felt safe enough to. I'm this person that you can talk to outside of your partner, but never apologize for what you feel like. Never apologize for this. Like, no, you did nothing wrong. Horrible stuff happened to you. Like, that's fine. Like, of course, I'm gonna struggle because there's other parties that I know are involved in this situation. But no, you got to speak your truth, and you're comfortable. Like, please, like that's fine. But I, I had to go back to therapy.
Yeah.
Um, because it was like a month after, and I was still struggling with the knowledge I had and kind of everything.
Yeah.
And, with like the parties, the situation,
Mhm.
and I started to go back to Dawn, and she's like, I clearly remember her like putting like that final piece for me. It was like the final little gift before she passed, and was like, so you're an empath.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what? I mean, I've heard that like before, but like really?
Yeah.
She's like, no. It's like, think about everything you're saying. It's been a month. It's not your story. This didn't happen to you. No offense to them, but you are still holding on to this
Yeah.
trauma and this sadness and this anger, and you can't let go, right? I was like, yeah, so that's why I came to you. She's like, yeah, that's like, and I'm here for you. I got you. Um, but that's because you're empathetic to everyone. Like you are like this emotional sponge
Yes.
that will take everything
Yeah.
for everyone, and it's like, I'm there for you. I got you. He's like, but you need to release that.
Yeah.
I was like, well, fuck. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I'm 34 at the time. I'm like, I didn't know I needed that last little bit.
Yep.
So that was like the last
Yep.
thing we were working on before she, unfortunately, her timely passing. But um, I mean, it's astounding to like you mentioned that like having that cleanse afterwards,
Mhm.
knowing that helps so much. It was so weird, like hearing those words.
Yes.
It was like, oh, so I'm not wrong. Like no, you're
Yeah.
obviously not wrong. You're right. Just now you have to find an outlet for that. Like what do?
Yeah.
You need to get away from that. Um, what were to ask you a question? What are
Yeah.
things that you do to cleanse? Like,
Sure. I mean, you started with the whole story of just you and, Superman. For me, it's fiction. I read a lot of fiction.
mhm,
For me, what I've noticed too, and these are the types of things that like it's taken me this long, like what, a decade to really understand that like, okay, idle time is bad for me, or like what's gonna trigger me. So what can I do to fill my time? I mean, I like to craft, keeping my hands busy, physically making something is very beneficial for me. It's those little things that you find to fill your time that actually make such a huge difference. For me, it's allowing myself and kind of recognizing that, like, okay, after I travel,
Mhm.
I cannot do the go right back to work on Monday thing. I have, like you said, when you
Mhm.
texted saying, oh, something intense is going to happen, I'm going to
Mhm.
call out. Recognizing, like, I can't do this anymore because I crash after, when I'm around a lot of people because you're soaking up all the emotions, a lot going on. Those little things that and there's other things that I've kind of had to, like, okay, watch your drinking, or
Oh, me too. Yeah.
sleep. It's
Mhm.
those little habits that actually, other than filling my time day to day with, reading or crafting, it's those little things that make such a huge difference. That it sucks because they're not fun.
Mhm.
It's like,
Mhm.
it's but I get, like, okay, Gina, maybe you're making a bad choice. It sucks, but there are moments where it's like, yeah, I want to go out with my friends and have drinks and stuff. And maybe you have a few more than
Mhm.
you're gonna want to
Yep.
deal with tomorrow. It's just,
Yep.
but that has the whole next day. It's like, it's rough. It's a depressant. That's the last thing you really need. So it's recognizing those ugly things, and it sucks because it's not fun, it's not sexy to do this. I've had to make sure I keep going to therapy when I'm even feeling okay.
Mhm.
It's that consistency.
Yeah, I've been ever since last August into September when this
Hmm.
moment happened and triggered my like going back to therapy. I've had those days you were talking about, like, oh hey, maybe I've drank too much or something. I've had two moments that stick out, and those were like the last two moments. Like, I know,
Hmm.
like, in like the loser part of my brain, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
One beer's good. One beer or one drink's good. And after that, I should stop. If I
Yeah.
want a vice, hey, there's a shitload of soda. Just
Hmm.
drink all my sugar. It's fine. um, because I've had two moments and they were like, well, that one's not impactful, but like one, I'll say out loud. I on my son's second birthday was just very depressed and very
Hmm.
anxious. I don't know why. It's like this one of those random days, and we had a block party, and I'm starting to drink. I'm starting to drink. I'm starting to drink. And
Hmm.
a lot of people make jokes about it now, and I'm willing to like joke around about it, obviously, because we've come through the other side. But I was just a horrible person. I was a horrible I'm yelling at everyone. I'm like, who the fuck is this? Like, this is not who you are. And
Hmm.
I mean, luckily, again, I speak her praises all the time. I have Tara, and we had like
Yeah.
a really sit down talk. And she was like, don't fucking do that again. I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. And she's there for like the bad times, right? To be like, hey, you're an idiot. Fix your
Hmm.
shit. And I'm like, yep, nope, you're right. And I'm willing to admit, I'm wrong, and I'm I need help and stuff like that. And that was
Yeah.
like one of those days that I was like, all right, maybe one or two beers is fine, and then you're depressed. Do something else, anything else,
Yep.
but this.
Yep.
Eat your feelings. Jesus Christ. I mean, some people, that's the thing they shouldn't be doing, but for you,
Yeah.
just have like two more burgers than you need that day. Like
Yeah.
whatever you need to do other than this one thing.
Yeah.
And that was always like that was always a struggle too. Like, just to figure out that, like, all right, I need to do something that gets me away from this moment, but that's also not destructive. And then as
Yeah.
well, when you're stuck in that place, I have suffered from depression so deep that like even the things that help me get out of it mean nothing. Like
Yeah.
like
That
so
numb,
many.
like,
Mhm. Oh yeah,
yep.
absolutely. There's so
Yep.
many I being in this gaming space specifically when I'm trying to grow
Hmm.
that, I've seen so many people like, oh yeah, you never played this, you never did this. I was like, I could tell you what year that came out, and I could tell you exactly what I was doing, and I was being horribly depressed, like on the couch,
Yeah,
uncontrollably sobbing probably, and Tara just rubbing my
yeah.
back and being there for me, and like nothing felt right. Music didn't feel right, comics didn't feel right, video games, movies, whatever it may be, did not feel right. Nothing could get me out of it. It just
Hmm.
going through, that was the only thing I could do.
Yep.
Um
Yeah.
I remember clearly, I once I found these like triggers that like, hey, I'm gonna
Yeah.
push through it and I'm still gonna do this thing. Okay, so maybe I'm too depressed to watch a movie, but I could take that time to listen to music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
it's
find
just
your alternatives,
yeah.
switch it up. And I think that's something that I've noticed too in the last few years is having like a whole arsenal of like hobbies or just interests or things. It's like even if you suck at it, it's like let me try. Like that's kind of how I
Mm-hmm.
started candle making. It's just like randomly, oh,
Yeah.
just try it. It's something to keep your and the way I always thought about it is like, what is that thing that'll like get you to the next second? Because those moments where you're like, how am I going to get up to that next second, let alone the rest of my life? Just focus on that second. What
Mm-hmm.
are you going to do? And it's it's so important. Again, not a sexy answer to any of this, but those little like day-to-day things, it's what make up our day. It's
Mm-hmm.
so important. In the mental health space to really be kind of aware of how things are tied and just I mean little habits too. Like I've taken like I don't buy big bottles of alcohol anymore because like I could fuck that up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just little things to like I have even just like an app on my phone that like to track drinking. It's like and
Mm-hmm.
it's just to make sure you're being mindful of
Yeah.
it. Those little things that you can do just to okay, am I making a like I'm gonna make a choice here. So what choice am I gonna make? That mindfulness is so important. So it's what are you gonna do day to day?
Mm-hmm.
And it has had a huge impact, but it sometimes I get mad. I'm like, can I just like go out and not think about this?
Oh
But
yeah,
no,
that's
no,
I
I can't.
yeah, I wish it was a switch. Like, listen, it's Tuesday. I don't want to think about this. Can I think about
Yeah.
this another day? I have, oddly enough, I have like particular days that are pretty horrible.
Hmm.
Like both my mother's passing,
Oh God,
um,
yeah.
like those days sick, like sync up, and it's like every time, like that time of the year, and I always am so numb to it at the same time that I've like forgotten the specific day
Yeah.
because I just don't want to think about it. And then
Hmm.
I'm just like in a nebulous like depression for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, whoa, why am I so depressed? I'm like, oh shit, it's the beginning of December. My mom died. Like, or it's the end of October, or sorry, beginning of October, like, Ogie died. Like, of course, or now knowing, when my father now, like knowing that I had one and his story and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him. Like, there's that new added, layer.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh well, I can put that on the list. I have a list now. Like I have a
Yeah.
list on my phone because like I want to know like, oh, why am I like excessively depressed? And I just look at my notes. I'm like, oh, yep, it's December 3rd. Yep,
Yep.
that makes sense. My brain somewhere back here is like, hey, we're gonna be sad today, just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, ah,
For
gotcha.
me, Yeah, for me, it's always, and I know I'm not the only one who holidays, like the new year is always very difficult for me, and my birthday is actually always really difficult for me.
Yeah.
It's just whatever, I mean, I guess it's that reminder of like another calendar year has ticked by, or
Mm-hmm.
another number, another age, where I always get really like pensive and reflective. I'm like, what have you done with your life?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or like, just the little things that like I struggle with. Like stupid me as a kid thought, oh, you're gonna be married when you're 28. I'm like, well, that's hilarious. So it's just like those little moments where like once I got to my 28th birthday, I was like, well, fuck. Like you just start thinking about those things, and it is. So I kind of like have to be very strategic about
Mm-hmm.
like my birthday or the holidays, just how, because I know I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get very depressed, very
Yeah,
single.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's wild. It's
I've struggled with that. I with one of my things that I've like shining beacons for me is I've kept like there's this weird life goal I've had since I was a child that I've been vocal about it, but like it's like the base bone of if these four things happen, I will be happy. And I have
yeah.
three out of the way already. And the fourth one is dumb, and you'll understand when I get to it. So I always wanted to be married. So I'm married now. You know, so
Mhm.
oddly enough, I was like, oh, okay, well, hey, I came quicker than I thought it was
Check that
gonna.
off.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah,
Tara
done.
you were just a check mark.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, that's all she is. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you know.
I feel she probably heard that somehow through the floorboards.
You're right. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that comes
So
barging
I
in.
think like, what the fuck? Um, weirdly enough, I've always wanted like just the very typical not 1950s, you know, but like the nuclear family. Because
Mhm.
growing up, I didn't know my siblings. You know, my mom kept me
Yeah.
away from them, but I've always wanted to have a son and a daughter, specifically for any reason. And I wanted to be married. And I wanted to own a house, and like that's the bare bones dream. Like I knew if I got those four things, that is like such a mark in my life that I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
anything that happens above that, fucking awesome. Like that, I'm even more
Yeah.
fortunate than I thought. But and I got three of them. I oddly have a wife, a son, and a daughter. I just need a house, and this housing market is horrible. And
Oh my God, right?
yeah, not to talk shit about my job, because I like the people I work with and stuff. But my debt to income ratio, I don't make enough money. Straight up, like a
Yeah.
mortgage person told me that, and that was a downward spiral from my
Yeah.
depression. And Tara could see it coming. Like the second, like he said that to me, she was like, I could see it, and I was like, ah, shit. All right, you have to pull him out of this one. Like,
Yep.
and I was like, yes, you will. You will have to pull me out of this one. And something's just always in the back of my head. I mean, obviously, it's 2022, and the housing market's horrible. And I should be fortunate for all the stuff I have, but it was like to hear, like, hey, you're doing good in your job, right? He's like, yeah, but you still don't make enough money. I'm like, what the fuck? I just want this one
Yeah.
last piece. It's oddly rough for that.
It has a huge impact. Like for
Yeah.
me, I mean, one of oh, I'm getting feedback.
Uh,
Am I getting too
no,
loud?
no, I think you're fine. I think it's happened once or twice too, as well for
It
me.
was, yeah. So my big thing that I've been struggling with more and more, like every year, like, I mean, like I said, like I want to get married one day. And I am like perpetually single. So like that's always been, and it's so funny though because I also like at the same time recognize like I do actually very well on my own, and
Hmm.
I haven't met anyone who I'm like, yeah, I want you to be my partner. So like who in my head do I think I would be marrying? Where it's like
I mean, Chris
it's
Evans is looking for the
objectively
final one, so
yeah,
so
so
you
and
never
that's my
know.
thing is like
Yeah,
it's objectively fine. Like I'm
yeah.
doing fine. It's not like I need to date just anyone to feel good about myself. Like objectively, I'm great at being a single lady, but it sucks. Like, cause it's always like in that little back of your head, you're like, that's why every birthday and New Year, I'm like, well, I thought I'd be a little further along down that journey.
Well,
Um,
I could
and you feel
say,
like you're wasting time.
oh yeah, I could say you're at least ahead of the game for that sense because, like mentally, because I definitely, not to call names, but like I have a friend who unfortunately got in a very bad situation and is still in that situation. It's not happy,
Yeah,
but they didn't want to be alone. Like
yeah,
they
and
stated this to me, and I'm like, you can leave at any time. It's not the end
yeah.
of the road. Like that's their story, and that's not any of my
It
business. But
is. It's
but
something, and it's hard. Like, don't get me wrong, it is hard, especially when you are feeling like, it was just the other day. There was a really big bug. Okay, it was so big, and like, it's just me here. The
yeah,
cats were no help. They like, it's those
just
moments, or
throw Kylo at them.
when the toilet clogs. It's those moments where you just get so tired,
Mm,
and I know that's, I mean, obviously a symptom of many mental health
mm.
issues, but it's those like your soul is tired just because the bleeping toilet clogged. And it's those things where it's like, all right, sometimes you just gotta acknowledge like life is gonna be hard. Or like you said with being an empath, like, okay, this is it. Like you got to have that level of acceptance, and it
Hmm.
sucks. Like, but it's so important, and that's why I think like I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I will say there's always like you got to test out a few people. I've gone to some bad therapists, and that's what sucks is because you're in such a vulnerable position.
Hmm.
Like I had a therapist call me the wrong name in the session.
Oh my
She called me
god.
Casey. So I like didn't
Not even
I
close.
thought it
Not even
I thought
close.
it was a mistake. It happened multiple times, so I never went back, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but you do eventually find the right person, and it just takes effort, and that's normal. I think same with meds. Like you're gonna probably, I mean, I've been medicated for a decade now, but like you're gonna be on different meds, and that is normal, and it sucks, but that's unfortunately part of the process. And having those moments, it's part of it, and you're not the only one having them. I think that's why we got to talk about this, is because sometimes it's you just got to say, oh, I've changed my meds and I feel like shit, or when you said
Hmm.
you sit up and like today is not going to be a good day, and that is okay to say out loud.
Yeah, and I think for so many who are getting help that they need or just starting that journey, I think it's very important to say what you said. Like um, that first med, that you get put on, it's not going to be the cure all. Right
Yeah,
there
I've
and
lost
then.
count. I've
Hmm.
been on cocktail. I've lost count, and that is not rare to hear.
I think I've been on like three in my life, and like the first one did okay, but then there's other side
Hmm.
effects, that physical side effects, especially when you're married, you're like, you don't want to have those. And and then you're like, all right, well, let's try this one. Well, now I have this other side effect, or I don't want to eat as much or anything. Which granted, I'm a big guy, I should probably stayed on that one. Uh, but it's scary when you don't, like, let's say if you're brave enough to take that first step and get the help that you need. I think it's also scary because I think you want to get help as quickly as possible,
Yes.
and it's not a overnight thing. It's so weird to not, like, you want that med to work right away. And that's just not how medications work. It needs to build up in your system. It needs to do this. It needs to do that. But I think so many of us can be impatient in that sense, that you just are like, all right, I finally did it. I finally made that first step. Now get better. It's like, well, no, this is the first step in a long journey and a long road. And you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, but you're going to get there. It's hard to hear that. Or even therapists, like if you don't find a good one off the bat, like the first time I ever went to therapy was with Dawn, and I was very lucky. I'm so lucky that
Wow.
I'm okay. Obviously, right now I don't
Yeah.
feel like I need therapy, but I'm worried that the day I do again,
Yeah.
that I don't have her anymore. Like
Yeah.
that's another anxiety thing I have to think about. Like I have to find someone now, and like what if they're not as good as her? Like
Yeah.
that's scary. I have to keep reminding myself, like, hey, it's not the be all end all. If that person does not work out, you'll know right away, and you can find somebody
Yeah.
else. Like as long as it takes, like you can do that, and you have a support system. I think the support system is obviously the main.
Oh
I
yeah.
think we keep preaching that throughout this whole episode. Is like the support system is the most important thing. And if you do, I mean, obviously that's to loop it all around. That's kind of where the for so many minorities and people of color, like you don't have that. And it's, I
It's
mean, it
not.
obviously is not just a
Yeah.
minority issue. We joked, or I joked, that growing up, as a legitimate threat, like my mother said, this is a white person problem.
Yeah.
This is not.
Yeah.
We don't do this as Puerto Ricans. Like this is a white person problem. Like, well, everyone has it. Anyone can have it. It's not unique to minorities. It's
Yeah.
not unique to white people. It's not unique to any demographic of person, whether it be you know straight, gay, whatever it may be. Like we all can have a struggle, and it's just if you can find that person to open up to and find that support system is the most important thing. It's
Yeah.
disproportionately, like for many of us in people of color, like you are, like you said, your mom and dad are like unicorns, right?
Oh
Because
yeah, absolutely.
you have that support system from jump, and so many of us may not have that or may have that,
Yeah,
and doesn't, the journey is still the same. We still have to get to a good
yeah,
mental health part, and it's getting better. Like I said, for the younger generation, it's going to get better for them. Um, I know for my niece, like just even having her from jump be so open, and like my
that's
sister,
fantastic.
like being receptive to stuff, like
Yeah.
it was like, damn, okay, well, this is great, that you have a support system. And now we find each other and we're both very similar to each other. So we're both
Mhm.
like, hey, are you depressed? Are you this? And, oh, yeah, I'm this,
Yeah.
I'm this. I'm like, oh, cool. We are the same person. You,
Apparently, me and my oh, sorry, feedback. Me and my
hmm
cousin, she was, the one where growing up we knew like, oh, she struggled. She was the only one who like in our youth was like, I don't want to say out because that has different connotations,
hmm
but um in our adulthood we found out we were on the same medication at one point, and my other cousin was like, it was like you guys found out you were wearing the same pair of shoes or something, and I was like, we were bonding,
yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah. What SSR are you wearing? Oh, I'm wearing this. Oh, me too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's something I want to point out too is it's so not a part of, I mean, just because we are Puerto Rican, there's the machismo, so like
Oof.
with
Yeah.
men especially. But the other thing that I want to point out is for minorities, they have the whole added layer of discrimination, racial injustices, all these things that it's like, I don't know the statistics, but it's like, mm,
Yeah.
there's other layers that are going to affect your mental health. That's a better way
hmm
to safe way to say what I guess want to say.
Yeah.
That of course this needs to be a bigger part of our communities, and unfortunately there's not as many therapists of color, and that I hope is something that changes. But like, listen to
hmm
my unicorn therapist. I mean, he was like the fifth or sixth therapist I've had in my life, but he is a half black, half Middle Eastern gay man.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm
Unicorn. Yeah.
right. I'm just so
Yeah.
thrilled. And
He
he's literally amazing.
he was the oasis in
I'm
the
just
sand. That's what he was like,
I'm
yes.
just so thrilled he's
hmm
in this profession because we need more people like him, and you know, just and like sadly I just got a text from him. He's on a break, they're having another baby, and then he's gonna start his own private practice. So I just got that text. I was like, wait,
Oh no.
I'm
Yeah.
so happy for him and I'm doing well. So it's like,
hmm
it's fine. But he's like, do you want me to set you up with another therapist? I was like, no.
No, you're mine.
Yeah.
I'm
So
yours. You're
I,
mine. Yeah.
hopefully we'll one day support his, not support, like it's,
hmm
like I do need medical attention, but like,
Yeah.
it's, of course I'm going to follow him.
Yeah.
When you find that person,
hmm
it takes work to get there. He was, yeah, like I think my sixth therapist. Like I said, I think I've been on at least in combination wise like 10 different medications over this decade. It's normal, and just it's we got to talk about it so people know that it's
hmm
normal,
Yeah.
and recognize that when someone's going through that journey, to honor that. And for Tara to, I love that she can be like, okay, that's going to set him off, and like
hmm
acknowledging it and being, that's okay. you know
Yeah.
I love that. I love Tara.
Yeah. She's the best. Everyone needs a Tara.
Everyone needs a
You
Tara.
can't have mine,
I
but
agree with that. Yeah.
very
So
possessive. She is my
yeah.
Tara.
She's your Tara. I'll
Yeah.
find my Tara
Yeah.
one day.
I can loan her out for like a few hours, but like if
Yeah.
I'm having a rough day, I'm gonna need her.
Yeah,
Especially
exactly.
with these crazy kids running. But
Oh.
yeah, no, you're right though. Like that yeah, we were talking about so inclusive of just like, depression and how it manifests, that on top of that, like there are those outstanding factors and outside forces that, I already depressed driving up to my friend's house and then always getting pulled over in his neighborhood. Hey, what you doing here?
Yeah.
Going to my friend's house. You
You
saw
have
me last
no
week.
idea how glad I am that I am white passing and have a last name that people mistake. Oh, and my first name's Gina, but like people think I'm Italian.
hmm
And I recognize that there is so much safety in that. and it sucks to say out loud, but like I also get that like my half black cousins, like we are like they are of course dealing with things that I am not dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
and that obviously has to be honored or recognized. You know, I have cousins who are half Puerto Rican, half Syrian, so Arabican, as one of them likes to
That's
say.
awesome.
They obviously like TSA loves him, you know, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's part of some people's day to day. Of course, that's going to have
Mm-hmm.
a toll on your mental health. And, you know, it just,
Yeah.
so in our community, we just we have to normalize talking about this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's, I know some people may say, yeah, being okay or being not okay is okay. And that's usually something I would like to reference. Like, it's definitely okay to just have those days as long as you have that support system. And if you're listening to this, I mean, obviously I'm your support system, like straight up.
Yeah, we
You
got
can,
you.
yeah, you can always, my social stuff's down below. You can always just hit me up. I know, so like I've made friends just being part of like this gaming community, and they've had rough days, and I will straight up DM them like on Twitter and just be like, "Yeah, how you doing? You good?
Yeah.
No? Okay, man. Hey, man, you want to talk? I'm here. Absolutely, I'm fine. I'm here for you." And vice versa. Like I've felt more open to talk about that stuff on social and have people, you know, be like, "Hey, we've only talked maybe once or twice. Are you doing okay right now? You're not? What do you need? Like, do you need a funny
Yeah.
video? Do you need a photo of my cat? Like, what do you need?" And I was
Hmm.
like, "Yeah, man, definitely send.
Yes.
Yeah,
See, what do you need?
yeah.
And I
What?
will say one weird, like, to kind of like put a happy spin on it is like
Mm-hmm.
I very much recognize that being depressed, being anxious has made me a kinder person. I mean, I obviously still got things to work on, but you know,
Yeah.
I I'm gonna find a quote from Robin Williams just because he said it better, and it's Robin Williams, but um I have it saved on my phone because it's very much how I feel at times. It says, I think the saddest people always try their hardest to make people happy because they know what it's like to feel absolutely worthless and they don't want anybody else to feel like that. Where I take that to heart is, you know, I just want to make sure people feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, maybe I don't always do it as well as I would like, but I think I want them because I've had moments where I'm like, if I were not here tomorrow, no one would notice, no one would care. And I don't want anyone to feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so just taking that time, like you said, to DM someone on Twitter, that little thing can be huge. And it's definitely made me rethink how I interact with people. And I'm grateful that it has made me make conscious decisions to stay connected with people and to be kinder than sometimes I would like to. But
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
it's a choice, you know, to make, and it's one that I don't know if I would have made had I not gone through all this. So
No,
I
it.
guess there's upsides,
Yeah,
maybe.
and there definitely is. I think we can definitely help people because, like you
I
said,
think
like that
so.
quote, like I think that's a beautiful quote to end the whole episode on that. And then I to feel like you maybe haven't contributed. I can tell you right now you have. Like, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, like you are like one of the best people I've met. Um, I'll see in that hellhole. I won't speak too much because I still,
Yeah, I know.
I need a
I know
paycheck.
exactly what you mean.
I like my people. I like my people, my
Yeah,
direct
but
people. There's still
yeah,
problems there
yeah.
that won't get solved. Uh, but you are one of the best people I've met there. And I'm eternally grateful just to be your friend. And you make it easier
Thank
to
you.
be able to speak about this. So I wanted to kind of honor you. I didn't want, that's why I didn't want to say anything beforehand when I messaged you, but I was like, I'm gonna kind of throw her on the spot right there for that. But I wanted to say thank you, for highlighting
Oh
this
my God, I
stuff.
made it all the way to the end to like really cry. That's
Yeah,
okay.
I did it. I knew I was gonna get it.
No.
No, but thank you so
Yeah.
much. And
Wow.
as I mentioned at the top of the episode, a lot of the resources are gonna be down below. Again, if you are having a rough day, I have my notes right here. You can always call 1-800-444-6472 for the National Minority Mental Health Awareness toll-free hotline. You can email them at info@minorityhealth.hhs.gov. And then if you're feeling really bad, even if it's you know, you feel like the world's going to be better without you, I can tell you right now it's not. You are the shining light for somebody. Someone needs you, someone loves you. You can always just down 988, and that is the mental health hotline that was just implemented a few weeks back. That's a great resource. You're not alone. I love you. I think I say that quite often in many of my episodes, funnily enough. I'm just thinking about it. I love you, even if I don't know you. You're not alone, and you are seen. So thank you, and catch you in the next one.